issue altogether. This morning, we'll be discussing forests. What forest cover do we have at the moment? Is logging still illegal in the country? And what is the Forestry Department doing to increase forest cover to 10% in line with the Sustainable Development Goals? To discuss this, we have in studio with us Chief Conservator of Forests, Julius Kamau. Many thanks for making time for us in News Center this morning. My first question to you perhaps would be, after Kenya's commitment to increasing forest cover to 10%, what is the state of forests in the country?
Well, thank you for hosting me this morning. It's good to say that the commitment is still there. Is by 2022, we should be at 10% forest cover. Right now, we are at 7.2. 7.2. And therefore, for us to go there, to break the numbers, we need at least to plant about 1.8 billion seedlings in the country between now and then. And that's a momentous task. But as Kenya Forest Service, the Ministry of Environment, and all our partners working together, including the public, it is possible that we can be able to achieve that target.
How is Kenya specifically implementing that push to increase forest cover to 10%?
One thing I would say is that basically, as Kenya Forest Service, one of our strategic objectives is to do this, to increase the forest cover. And also, as a government, there is already a strategy that has been prepared. It's being called the 10% forest cover strategy. And this strategy is the one that will guide Kenya Forest Service and all the ministries, departments, and agencies of government, including the private sector, the communities, to be able to drive and work together to achieving the 10% forest cover. So in essence, it's a collaborative effort.
Now, talk to us about the National Green Growth Strategy that Kenya is implementing, really trying to move towards a green economy, ensuring that forestry and the green economy really is sustainable for Kenyans come 2022 and beyond.
Thank you. And what I would want to say is the importance of this green economy, which is, from where I see it, is based mainly from the forest perspective, which is one of the bigger components of the green strategy. And if you look at Kenya, we have already about 2.5 million hectares of forests in the public land, not counting what is on the farmland. And these are critical ecosystems, but they still continue to be under pressure. Pressure from encroachment, pressure from illegal activities, pressure from development, and from looking for more land for agriculture. And therefore, as a country, we need just to appreciate the role of the forests in terms of being a fundamental pillar to be able to make sure that everything else actually succeeds, including linking it to the Big Four agenda for the government. If you look at the food security, which is basically would have to be fed either through the rain-fed, all through irrigation. All this, we're talking about water. And forestry has a key role to play in sustainable supply of water, either through the rain that we have and also through irrigation system in terms of the water systems that we have in the country. And therefore, the call for all of us is that we have a limited amount of forest in this country remaining. We have to guard it jealously if you have to be able to survive.
And we'll get to that. Let's talk about the challenges that are, have come in. Cases of illegal logging have increased in the country. This was declared illegal. How are you containing the menace, considering that not very long ago, your officers interdicted officers linked to illegal logging? These are officers from the Kenya Forest Service.
Yes, that is affirmed as correct. But just to make a statement, before the moratorium, which was instituted in February last year, there was haste and issues of illegal logging. But after the moratorium, there have been a quite of calm in the forest sector. And as we speak, even there is illegal activity, but they actually have reduced. What we have done as Kenya Forest Service is to become more keen that everywhere we are able to detect illegality and be able to respond swiftly. That is what has happened. It's not the illegality going up, it is Kenya Forest Service becoming more alive and becoming more responsive, possibly than before.
Experts say, yes, you can, try curb illegal logging. Yes, you can evict illegal settlers from the forest. But that in itself is not the key to restoring our forests as they are. We've had a lot of human-wildlife conflict. We've had a lot of conflict with illegal settlers in these forests themselves. How has KFS handled this issue?
Basically, that's why possibly I'm here today this morning. It's about creating public awareness. We have to go beyond and ask ourselves, why are we protecting and conserving this environment? And to come back and to connect to the people of this country, ourselves, is that a single tree, for example, on a single day, would be able to produce or to give us oxygen that we breathe in for 4 people. Okay? Let's start from there. The connectivity between people and forest has to be enhanced. We must live together. We breathing in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. The tree feed on it and give us oxygen. That is how close we want to make forest look to the Kenyan people. And therefore, with that knowledge, we are able to make personal commitment, wherever we are and whatever we do, to be able to say, it is my life, it is the life of my children, it is guaranteeing the future of my children. And for that reason, I have to keep that tree standing. I have to plant more tree. We have to bring the conservation of forestry, not far in the forest, but close to our own way of doing things and way of life. That's only we're going to win the war against deforestation and degradation. And that is the conversation I'm happy that we're having this morning.
I mean, there has been a lot of questions, first of all, over who owns forest resources. Do they belong to the government? Do they belong to the people? And the Forest Act of 2015 offered leeway for communities to be involved in forest management. Talk to us about what has been done since then to bring in settlers and neighbors of forests in the conservation of forests.
In fact, I could say one of the major successes that has not possibly been put in the public domain, it is how this Forest Act 2005, which was operationalized in 2007, brought a paradigm shift. Before that, forestry were considered as a central government property, and people considered them as an enemy because they perceived it as government. But from this law that came up in 2005 and which was implemented from 2007, basically it brought a paradigm shift where it's by law now that Kenya Forest Service in every forest station has to engage with the community forest association to be able to partner together and be able to co-manage the resources. And therefore, to answer the question, the forest belongs to the people. We are just the custodian as government. And therefore, we must work together in that realization and to be able to conserve our environment in a very, very good way. And to add on to that, and the reason why possibly today I also need to speak to Kenyans, is that on Friday this week, which is 26th of July, it is a day, International Day of Conservation of Mangrove Ecosystems. And therefore, it's a day where we also want to demonstrate, as a Kenya Forest Service, who are leading these celebrations and joining the rest of the world in creating awareness about forest conservation, and especially the mangrove conservation in the coastline. And on this day particularly, I, the CCF, myself, will be signing a forest management agreement between Kenya Forest Service and the Vanga Community Forest Association in Kwale to be able to cement legally our relationship with this CFA, as we have done with more than 150 CFAs across the country. Yes.
Let's talk about the need, the fact that the population is increasing. So there is need for land for settlement, there is need for land for agriculture, the need for land for other economic activities. Are there economic activities that have been designated that can take place in the forests while still maintaining forest cover?
Exactly. I think we have to be innovative as a country. We have to look at a way of actually sustaining and financing sustainably our forest ecosystem. Currently, as a forest sector, we are not well funded. But basically, as a Kenya Forest Service, we have to go ahead and become innovative. For example, we have very many pristine ecosystems. Look at Mount Kenya. Look at Aberdare. They are magnificent. Look at the Kakamega Forest. What we can do there is having some nature-compatible investment like ecotourism. And therefore, we want to promote the same way the Kenya Wildlife Service benefits from various facilities within the game park. We should also have some few facilities within the forest land. But what we have to ensure is that they are eco. They are truly eco, and they are within the law, and they are not causing significant negative impact to the ecosystem. And therefore, we have to take care of the carrying capacity of our ecosystem so that we don't then overdo. And I think this is an area that Kenya Forest Service and the board are strategically looking forward to. And therefore, we can be able to broaden our economic basis, and we should not entirely look at the logging perspective to get revenue. We should be able to diversify our revenue sources.
Absolutely. Yes. But let's speak more about the evictions that we've seen in the recent past from these forests. And many say evictions then should be the last resort, when freeing forest land from human habitation, because especially use of force itself provides fermentation grounds, grounds for social unrest. People may retaliate by, say, setting a forest on fire without that awareness. What has been done on the ground by KFS to spread that awareness?
Let me say, from taking up the helm, which is about now 100 days in Kenya Forest Service helm, I think the conversation here should be the basic of the basic principle of human rights and also the issue of patriotism as a country. Let us also appreciate that any activity I do legal or illegally, have a repercussion.
Right.
For example, let's start from our own reflection. As a person, if you go to this forest and you cut the tree and you destroy, yes, you may be defending your own right for survival, but also how many millions of Kenya will suffer from that right that has been given to you. And this tomorrow, and I think in the future, we'll be looking at the issue of water as a key aspect that we have to be careful as a country. These mountainous areas, these mountain forests are the source of our own water. If now people go in there, okay, and they are encroached, and they have this impact on this environment, it reduces the capacity for us to generate water. How many millions of Kenya will suffer?
Right, and I'm glad you bring that up.
That's the issue.
I'm glad you bring that up, because according to research here, water towers have progressively grown lower even after these evictions. Trees and shrubs are vanishing from the forest. What is the problem there? The problem is the same issue we are talking about, that we have personalized our own selfish gain. It's about me going to the forest. And of course, this is why we need to change the narrative, change the story among the Kenyan people, to also take care of their brothers and sisters elsewhere. I'll give you a certain scenario. People living around Mount Kenya or Aberdares of Mau, they have double benefit. First, the environment there is better, and therefore they can get water through rains. All right? So, but the people down there, talk about in the eastern province and down the Tana Delta, they only depend on water possibly through irrigation. And this water is coming from the mountainous region. Surely, as much as we want to do some activities in this forest, we must also consider our people downstream. If we have that personal conviction, I can tell you as a country, we are not going to talk about politics, we not talk about people and people have to respect the rule of law. If every Kenyan, for example, say I can go into the forest, we are not going to have any forest. And there are also many millions of Kenyans who are neighboring these ecosystems. They are poor, they are vulnerable. But because they believe in the rule of law, they have really been able to actually deny themselves the temptations of going to the forest, because they have been able to realize this forest give them water, this forest give them firewood, this water give them good environment for them to do their agriculture and farming, and therefore it's a personal reflection and respect the rule of law, and we should not have a double standard. And that's a convention we should be able to propel going Speaking
forward.
Of double standards, what action was taken against the KFS officers who were found guilty of pretty much facilitating illegal logging?
I would say it didn't take so long before I acted on these officers. Personally, I had to go down there. We went with the chairman of the board, and we ourselves witnessed the level of destruction. And there was a sense of cover-up from the officers who were given responsibility and the mandate to actually protect forest resources. And based on that, all of them have been interdicted, and they're going to go through the normal process of the as stipulated by the Kenya Forest Service Human Resource Policy. That is something that we have to do. And we are saying this, that we cannot allow a few people who have abdicated their duty and have become complacent and laxity to destroy and draw the gains of many other forest officers who are dedicating themselves under hard conditions to deliver and protect these resources. And therefore, we are very firm on those people who are becoming enemy within. We must deal with them conclusively.
Right, and we've seen efforts really across the country to ensure increased forest cover. Counties themselves are taking this up. Those, talks of perhaps recruiting the National Youth Service together with the Kenya Forest Service to plant trees across the country. How far have we gone with that initiative?
Thank you. We are engaging on various fronts. For example, as Kenya Forest Service, we are seeking and speaking with the Treasury and the Kenyan government to get some funding to be able to recruit about 1,500 rangers for this current financial year. Beyond that, we know also there are some areas we are working together with the community scouts. These are people from the communities. They are able to come and complement the efforts of the Kenya Forest Service. I had a discussion before with the county government of Meru, for example, who already have started a youth service. And we are trying to see how we can actually take this youth from Meru, take them to our Rondiani Paramilitary School, train them, and they come back to be able to protect the community forests. And even there, we'll be able to go and help them to develop community forest associations around these community forests and help them to develop participatory forest management plan and even agreement so that we can sustainably and secure our forest ecosystem. And I'm happy that many other counties have benefited from this and many more are coming. So we want to keep our paramilitary school in Rondiani busy, training and empowering and building the capacity of the county service, youth service.
When we began, you mentioned the importance of forest management and conservation and our movement towards a national green economy, growth economy, as being rather important, the realization of the Big Four agenda as well as the SDGs. Talk to us about how specifically that will help achieve the Big Four agenda.
Let me speak about forestry and environmental credibility or integrity as a pillar of the four big agenda. Without environment integrity, it is not possible to achieve the big four. Let me give a specific example. It's about the food security. In this country, most of the people depend on rain to be able to grow their crop. The regime that is maintained by the water towers to be able to have consistent rain and have it at the right time is hinged on how well we conserve our forest and our forest ecosystems. This year, for example, we had an unpredicted rain system, and that affects the productivity of our farmlands. And therefore, we have to conserve the forests so that we can have rains at the right time, predictable, so that it's done to the farm production. The other level is where there are no rains, like the ASAL areas. These are the dry land areas. For example, the Galana project of irrigation. It's depending on water coming from Tana and Athi. All these are coming from Mount Kenya, they're coming from Abadeas. If we don't conserve this, there will be no sustainability on all the interventions of the irrigation in this country. Talk about the Mau forest, which now we want to really go and pacify and do the much we can to support and make it to be a story of hope rather than a story of despair. The Masai Mara Game Reserve, which is one of the icon areas in this country on tourism and wildlife, it is at stake if we don't conserve Mau. Can you imagine a Kenya without the wildebeest crossing, without the conservation of the wildlife, without the ecotourism business? How would that be in terms of us achieving a big four agenda? Right. So actually we are speaking about our own life and survival if we don't conserve the forest ecosystems. Commitment towards achieving 10% or 10 to 15% forest cover by 2022, you say is still there. But you still mention that the Kenya Forestry Service is rather underfunded. So where is this commitment coming from, and what are the challenges are you experiencing? The challenges are there. We would want more resources, but of course we will never have adequate resources. But we are happy that the president of this country, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, made a directive to all the ministries, departments and agencies of the government to contribute 10% of their CSR budget towards tree planting. And this is why you have seen initiatives like the Greening Kenya initiative. We have seen other corporates and other governments coming to us and telling us we need to adopt a certain forest, like Marmanet, for example, which are able now to complement our efforts. We have also seen the schools coming and playing a critical role. And now we want to interest all the members of the public and the county government to join together so that we can do it together. So it's a collaborative and combined and joint effort. And I'm happy today I am here with the media because therefore the state has power to change the story and be able to make these kind of messages to reach out to all millions of Kenya and change their behavior on how they perceive trees to grow them on their own farm for their own good. And therefore it's a combined effort. And I'm very sure, for example, we are about 45 million Kenyans. Okay? If every one of us every year planted 5 trees, we are there. All right. Finally, Friday, like you mentioned, will be the International Day for Conservation of the Mangrove Ecosystem. You will be signing quite an interesting deal for Kenya. What will that mean moving forward? I think this will actually is a milestone, basically for this country. We are looking at the mangrove ecosystem, which is a lifeline of the coast life, basically from people themselves. If you know about the 5 counties of the coastline of this country, from Lamu to Mombasa itself, 80% of their local economy depends on fish and the fisheries in resources. We cannot have these resources unless the mangrove ecosystem is well conserved, because it serves as their breeding areas. And as much as today we have about 61,000 hectares of mangrove forests in the coastline, 24,000 have been degraded. And therefore, what we are doing this day and from today is to create awareness among the Kenyan public to be able to rally together to defend this ecosystem and to be able to rehabilitate the degraded areas. And for this day, we are saying we cannot do it alone as Kenya Forest Service. We must work together with the forest adjacent community. In this case, in the Vanga ecosystem, which is about 4,400 hectares, we have now a kind of a community forestization called Vajiki, who we are working together with, and we'll be signing a forest management agreement with them on Friday to signify that Kenya Forest Service and government is out there and willing to work with the forest adjacent community to be able to co-manage and participate in forest management resources, not for the government benefit alone, but for the co-survival and the livelihood of the adjacent communities. All right. Many thanks for making time for us on News Center this morning. That is Julius Kamau. He is the Chief Conservator of Forests, here to speak to us ahead of the International Day for Conservation of the Mangrove Ecosystem. This in line with Kenya's commitment to increase forest cover in the country to 10 to 15% by the year 2022. That conversation bringing us to a short break here at News Center. But do stay with us. More news making headlines on the other side.